U.S. black nationalist leader Malcolm X was assassinated on 21st February 1965 at the age of 39. The BBC reported on the reaction in his adopted home of Harlem, New York, as thousands of people queued to pay their last respects. At a time when black civil rights leaders were preaching peaceful integration, Malcolm X's uncompromising vision of black separatism inspired many people while terrifying others. He was murdered in February 1965, and a reporter for the BBC's Panorama, Michael Charlton, stated at his funeral that he spoke a vengeful message, as forthright and chilled as the winter morning they buried him. Amid tight security, the many thousands of people who had filed past his body were searched by police as a precaution against bombings. To these people, he preached that if the white man didn't answer for the black man's frustration, he must answer for his fury, added Charlton. He was internationally famous for his incendiary rhetoric, yet he had been developing a new, more moderate worldview. Asked what the death of Malcolm X meant to him by Panorama, one clearly upset man who was in the queue said, "It's a blow to every black person in the United States of America." A young man described him as a hero, saying, "He stood out among all black people. He showed the white man where it was at." This interviewee was one of several people who feared that more violence would follow. "Whoever did it, Muslims or whoever did it, there's going to be a whole lot of hurt," he predicted. One young woman said, "I don't believe it. Why would they kill another black man?" Another woman had no doubt who was responsible. The white power structure in America is behind it. They quickly capitalized on it by saying that one of his own kind did it, but they put it up to be done. They know they had more to gain by getting Malcolm X out of the way than they had to let him live. Malcolm X was shot dead on stage at a New York ballroom as he prepared to deliver a speech to his Organization of Afro-American Unity. His wife and children were in the audience. 3 men convicted of his murder were all members of the Nation of Islam, the political and religious body that, a year earlier, Malcolm X had left amid acrimony. One of the men was caught while attempting to flee and confessed to the murder. But the other 2 convictions resulted in a long-running miscarriage of justice campaign. In 2021, a New York State judge agreed, and their convictions were quashed. Both men were later fully exonerated after New York's Attorney General found prosecutors had withheld evidence that in all likelihood would have cleared them of blame for the murder. Still a controversial figure, 60 years after his death, Malcolm X remains to some the ultimate symbol of rage and resistance in the face of oppression. Born Malcolm Little in 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska, he was the son of a Baptist preacher. When Malcolm was 6 years old, his father was killed in what many believe was a deliberate racist attack by white supremacists, although nobody knows for sure if this was the case. The shock of his father being killed led his mother to have a mental breakdown, and Malcolm and his 7 siblings were shipped out to foster homes. He fell into a life of crime, and in 1946 he was jailed for burglary. While in prison, he discovered a love of learning and self-improvement. There he encountered the ideas of the Nation of Islam, a political and religious body that argued that equality for black Americans could only be achieved through black and white people living in separate states. Upon his release from prison in 1952, he formally changed his name to Malcolm X. It was a firm rejection of the surname that had been given to his family by the people who, generations earlier, had enslaved them. He toured the U.S., spreading the Nation of Islam's message, and discovered that he had the power and charisma to inspire people with his words. Public speaking was a skill he had learned, having entered prison as a middle school dropout who, he admitted, didn't know a verb from a house. He was not afraid to use shock tactics to get his message across, condemning white people as the white devil for the historic oppression of black people. When U.S. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, he said it was chickens coming home to roost. While Malcolm X attracted many followers, he also made a lot of enemies. In March 1964, he announced that he was leaving the Nation of Islam, having become disillusioned with its leadership. That same month, he witnessed a debate in Washington, D.C. about the Civil Rights Bill, and he finally met Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights leader whose belief in nonviolent protest was often seen as being in stark contrast with Malcolm X's more confrontational philosophy. I don't know how many followers he had, but he had a hell of a lot of well-wishers.